he had a chance to catch up with one of the Montreal Canadiens' better players, who has a wish list for who he'd like to see play on his wing this year in the upcoming season for the Habs. And how bad are the Canadiens going to be? Well, according to this player, not as bad as a lot of people think. As a matter of fact, he thinks they're going to surprise. Who does he think is going to wear the C? He's got an interesting opinion on that one. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette and Hockey Inside Out had a one-on-one with Habs center Nick Suzuki. We'll discuss it right here on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature. And La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.
Marinaro live from Spain. So minus the 8.6 beer, which is not with me right now. And so bear with me, folks. The internet is probably not as stable here and as strong here as it would be back home. But I'm in Spain for a couple of weeks, but I really wanted to do this, and I didn't want to let down the listeners and the viewers. So I'm doing it live from Spain. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature. The beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And La Cage, if the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you. There is no La Cage in Spain, but trust me, I wish there was. So minus the beer and minus the Sick Podcast mic sock, which I didn't bring with me, but I did bring, my laptop and my camera, my mixer board, and my microphone. Thank God. Joining me, Stu Cowan. Stu, what's going on?
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just coming back from a month-long vacation, played a lot of golf, some relaxation, so ready to go again with hockey right around the corner.
Good stuff. And Stu, if the internet is not overly strong or stable, or I tend to blur up a little bit, bear with me. It'll come back. But yeah, I know you were on vacation, but I also saw you had a piece on hockeyinsideout.com. You had a chance to talk to Nick Suzuki. So I have to ask you, weren't you on vacation?
I was on vacation, but I got a call from one of the BioSteel PR people asking if I was interested in an interview with Nick Suzuki, and I said, of course I am. So I came back a couple of days earlier to do that, and it was nice to talk with Nick, who, as you know, has spent basically all summer in Montreal. He went home to London, Ontario for a little bit once the season ended, but he's been in the city. He's been around the town. The Canadians have had videos of him at the Lasso Country Music Festival and in Old Montreal and all kinds of stuff. And as he said, he's found the summer long, the longest summer he's ever had, he said, since he started playing as a hockey player. But he's got a lot of stuff done. If you remember, he's the only player who played every game last season, but he was also dealing with a minor injury near the end, and he wasn't taking part in morning skates and some practices. So he's had a long summer to be healthy, and he's excited about what's coming up. And as you mentioned in the intro, he thinks the Canadians are going to surprise some people.
Speaking of BioSteel, my boy's favorite flavor is grape. Just thought I'd throw that in for whatever reason. But, the fact that he's been here all summer, he's on the Canadian social media account all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He played in the 3-on-3 at hockey, etc. He went to this country music concert that you talked about. He's been at golf tournaments. He's been at promotional events. He's here, there. He's everywhere. It seems to me that there has to be a reason for that.
Yeah, I think he's going to be named the next captain. I think it might come at the Canadians golf tournament, and if not, then at training camp. I think the only concern that management has at this point is the fact he's still young. He's 23. He just turned 23, but he's got 3 years experience. He's also going into the first year of that big contract. But the fact that they've had him around town all summer, I don't know if that was Nick's decision. I think there maybe Chantal Maccabee might have had something to do with this, along with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton. He's going to be the face of the franchise, I think, moving forward, or one of the faces of the franchise. And I think they want to have their captain connect better with the community than Shea Weber did. Shea Weber wasn't a public guy at all, didn't like talking to the media. You very rarely saw him interacting with fans or on any kind of social media with the Canadians. The total opposite with Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki seems to enjoy doing it. He likes being around the fans. If you remember, Tony, we were at that sports celebrity breakfast earlier this summer.
Correct.
He was there. He was sitting at a table amongst the crowd. Fans were coming up to him constantly. At one point, I looked at him and I go, "Man, people just leave the kid alone a bit." But he handled it perfectly. He was polite. He was nice with people. He had time to speak with people. The way the old Canadians were, right? The way Yvon Cornway and Jean Beliveau and all those guys were when they dealt with the fans. And Chantal Machabie, when she took over the job, she said she became a Canadiens fan and a hockey fan because she loved Guy Lafleur so much.
Of course, of
She
course.
was able to see him. She used to wait outside the Forum to get autographs, and I think she said she had 50 of his autographs. And he always took time to speak to the fans and be with the fans. And she wants to bring that back. That's part of the mandate she was given, and we're seeing that now with Nick Suzuki, who's really become part of the community. I think there was only two guys I think that were living year round in Montreal: Paul Byron, whose wife is a francophone.
Yes.
Jonathan Drouin. I think they're the only two Canadians who live here year round now. When you go back to the old, times have changed, but back in the glory days, most of the team stayed here. They had a softball team that traveled around the province during the summer. So I think between Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes and Chantal Machabie changing the image of this team, moving forward, wanted to be more friendly with the media, want to be more friendly with the fans. And I think what they've done with Nick Suzuki is a part of that.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my column, I think Nick Suzuki is ready to handle that role. I asked him about being captain. Actually, I can find the quote I have here right now in front of me on my screen. He says, "I haven't heard. We'll see. I don't know when they're planning on naming one, but for me, if I was to be given the captaincy, it would be a true honor and it would be a dream come true for me." So he's thinking about it. And if I find it hard to believe they haven't mentioned anything to him that he's going to be or might be. Maybe they haven't confirmed it. Maybe they said, "We'd like you to be the captain. We're going to have you here around the summer and we're going to make the decision afterwards." But Nick reminds me a lot of Saku Koivu in ways. Like, I don't think he's going to be a superstar player in the NHL. I think he's going to be a very good player for a long time in the NHL, like Saku Koivu was. And if he is indeed named captain, I think he'll be a good captain. I think he won't do anything to embarrass the franchise. He'll handle the fans well. He'll handle the players well. I know he's very well respected by his teammates in the room. Very well respected. That goes a long way. And before they named Shea Weber captain, I thought Brendan Gallagher should have been named captain because Brendan deals with the fans. He deals with the media. He enjoys doing it. It's something that Shea Weber never enjoyed doing. To me, that's a big part about being captain of the Canadiens. But moving forward, I don't know if Brendan Gallagher is going to be with this team for the remainder of his contract. I think Kent Hughes would like to move him if he can. I think Brendan Gallagher wouldn't mind going to a team with a better chance of winning a Stanley Cup. So I don't think you're going to name Brendan Gallagher a captain and then a year or two later, you're going to trade him. I think they want to move forward with this young group, and Nick Suzuki is going to be the leader of that young group. He has a respect of the young players. The older players respect him too. He's got veterans around him like Gallagher and Edmondson and guys like that to help him. So I'd be surprised at this point if Nick Suzuki isn't named the next captain of the Canadiens.
Yeah, I, for one, am very happy that he and Cole Caufield were at that sports celebrity breakfast. Just kind of take the focus off of me a little bit for a couple of hours,
But not only at the breakfast. Like at the breakfast, sitting in the crowd. They were there before the breakfast, signing autographs, posing for photos, young kids and old kids, and they were being pulled in 7 different directions. But they were smiling. They were smiling and happy the whole time they were doing it. And I think that's a key. That's something that's been lost on this team. We were talking about Chantal used to wait for the players outside the Forum to get an autograph. Now the guys drive right into the garage and they park, right? And they go into the locker room.
Yeah.
There's not that same connection. Times have changed. There's just not that same connection with the fans and the players. I don't think it'll ever be the same as it was when I was a kid growing up in the 70s. I remember Bobby Russo coming to my end-of-the-year hockey banquet and handing out trophies to all the kids. I still have a picture of me with him. So stuff like that. And I think it'll never be the exact same as that now and in the future, but I think the Canadiens want to get back, and Chantal Machabie wants to get back to something like that. All those
should, of course.
Are going to remember they got to meet Cole Caufield and Nick Suzuki and pose for photos. And Nick talked about how much he enjoyed the country festival. He's a big country music guy. He got to meet Luke Bryan and stuff like that. And just on the Habs social media, showing him in that environment, you're captain of the Canadiens. It's more than just a hockey team to people in this city. And the captain is more than just Shea Weber was a great leader in the locker room. His players loved him and respected him, but he did very little in that captaincy role apart from that. And some people say, I don't care about that. And that's fine. But to me, captain of the Canadiens is much more bigger than just what you do in the locker room. And, Jean Beliveau was the best captain ever. And you look at him in the community after he sadly passed away, 90% of the stuff people were talking about or memories weren't him on the ice. They were meeting him in a restaurant or meeting him at an exchange program or meeting him outside seeing him in a restaurant and getting an autograph. It was all that. So I think as the Canadiens try and rebuild their brand, connect more with the Canadiens, both and become a better team on the ice, they just want to make the team and the players more a part of the community than they have been in recent years.
The late great Jean Beliveau used to send personally handwritten letters to season ticket holders. Remember that? That's pretty cool.
And he used to respond to every letter he received too.
Yes. You mentioned something about Shea Weber, and so it's probably not a fair comment, but I'll make it anyway, because if I'm going to say it, I believe it. Even though Nick Suzuki wasn't drafted by the Canadiens, he was acquired. I think he was born to be a Hab. I think Cole Caufield was born to be a Hab. I don't think Shea Weber was born to be a Hab.
And I don't think Shea Weber wanted to be a Hab, to be perfectly frank. He never wanted to be traded. I think his world was ripped out from under him when he got traded from Nashville to Montreal. If you remember, PK was in Nashville about 2 days after the trade, singing at Tootsie's and connecting with fans. And it was quite a long time before Shea Weber showed up in Montreal after that trade. It wasn't something he wanted. And he never seemed to embrace the city or the fans and I think he knew, like, there's a big difference between being captain of the Nashville Predators and being captain of the Montreal Canadiens.
Totally different animal.
And I'm sure Weber's not a dumb guy. I'm sure he understood that, but he's a private guy, and he doesn't like doing interviews, and he doesn't like talking about himself, and he doesn't really interact with the public and stuff like that. And that's why I thought at the time Gallagher would have made a better captain than him. Shea could still be the leader in the locker room as an assistant captain, and maybe the more quiet, respected veteran leader than maybe Gallagher. But Gallagher would do all the other stuff, right? Gallagher's always been great with the media and great with fans, and you see him outside the Bell Center, and fans love him. And I think Brendan Gallagher understands more about what it means to be a Canadian than Shea Weber ever did.
If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, comment SICK, S-I-C-K. If you're listening on audio, please leave us a 5-star review and write SICK. And once again, I'm live from Spain, so you don't see the 8.6 beer or the SICK podcast mic sock. And if the internet is unstable, please bear with us. The signal's not as strong as it would be back home, but we're doing this for the passion of the podcast and for the love of the game, of course. If Nick Suzuki is indeed named the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, and that was decided, here we are at the beginning of September. Can you give me a date in which you think he was either told or it was hinted to him that he would be?
I think it would have been hinted to him before the summer, which is a big reason why he stayed here all summer and was asked to stay here all summer.
At the very latest, he was told before the draft because he was there on Thursday, July 7th at the Bell Center on the opening night of the draft. And when the Canadiens made their first pick overall selection, he was on stage with members of the management team and the scouts.
So he was either told you will be captain, I'm speculating here again, or told we plan to make you captain. We'd like you to be at the draft. We'd like you to spend the summer here. And maybe the one thing with Kent Hughes, Tony, he's really smart and he's really honest. And, he's honest with the media. He tells, he can't tell us everything, but he can tell us what he can. You don't want a GM telling the media everything because then it's going to.
I get the feeling that he can't tell us everything, but he'll never lie to us.
Exactly. Thank you. That's exactly. And I think he probably spoke. I'm sure he spoke with Nick and said, "We want you to think about this over the summer. Hang around the city, get a vibe for the city." Be part, and then we're going to come back to you around now, like before the start of training camp, and ask you, are you ready for this? Do you think you're really ready for this? And I mentioned Brendan Gallagher. I'm sure if Brendan Gallagher might feel upset that he wasn't named captain, I'm sure Kent Hughes will sit down with him and explain to him the reasons why if indeed they do pick Nick Suzuki. And I'm sure some of the reasons will be the ones I mentioned before about why. So it's so much of being a GM or a coach or the leader of any business today is just being honest with people and communicating with people. And I think that was a big problem with the previous administration of the Canadiens. I don't know if they were honest with people all the time, including players or media, etc. So I think that I'm not sure they would have said, you're going to be the captain. I think they may have said, we want you to be the captain. We want you to go through the summer. We're going to sit down again a little bit before the golf tournament. And we're going to say, okay, are you ready? Do you think you're ready? Are you ready to do this? And then we're going to make the announcement.
All right. Speaking of Suzuki, he thinks the Canadiens are going to surprise a lot of people. That's what he told you. I have my notes.
Well, here, I got this, as I said, my quotes in front of me from this. I asked him,
go for it. Yeah.
I said, what are you most excited? My question to him was, what are you most excited about the upcoming season? And he said, his exact quote was, I think I'm most excited about kind of proving people wrong. I think people have really put us down. I was actually talking to Sean Monahan, about our lineup. We got a pretty deep team, and I think people are really underestimating us. That's not a bad thing either. I think we're going to surprise people. And I think they will surprise people in a way. I think people think they're going to be the worst team in the NHL again. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the NHL. They have talent at forward. They have some depth at forward. They have pretty good depth at center, but goaltending is going to be shaky.
They're deep at forward, Stu. That's it. They're just deep at forward.
Montembeault and Allen both showed that they're not legitimate #1 goalies in the NHL. The more they play, the more their games sort of fall apart. They both have injury issues. They seem to be injury prone, and they're going to have a young, inexperienced defense in front of them. So I can see them losing a lot of 5-3, 6-4 games. But having said that, I think it's going to be like after Marty St. Louis took over last season. I think they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun watching the young defensemen. It's going to be, I think, back to when Jordan Harris got called up last season. Yeah. Marty St. Louis told him, don't worry about making mistakes. You're going to make 3 or 4 mistakes every game. You're going to wish you could come back. Don't worry about it. And wow, what a refreshing change that is from the way the Canadiens handled their rookies previously, where the guys were terrified to make a mistake because they'd either go down to Laval or they'd get a healthy scratch. So I think we're going to see that with the defense. They're going to play these young kids. They're going to let them make mistakes. They're going to work on the mistakes they made. But just allowing – it's hard enough to play in the NHL, especially as a defenseman, when you're not worried about making mistakes. When you are worried about making mistakes, that's usually when you make more mistakes because you're squeezing your stick, you're thinking too much. They have a lot of talented young defensemen. Let them play. Let them make their mistakes. Let them learn from their mistakes. Let them grow together. So I think that's why I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be fun to watching these young defense develop. I'm sure there's going to be some nights where some of these young defense are going to be -4, -5 and look terrible because it's not easy to jump into the NHL and play as a defenseman.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun to watch the forwards play. It's going to be fun to watch the defensemen develop. And the Canadiens they have a plan in place now, right? They're not going to be Stanley Cup contenders next year or the year after that. But they're building something here. And moving forward, they have smart people now running the organization. They have honest people now running the organization. And that goes a long way, man, especially with young players. Just be honest with them. Let them know.
I love their management team, I have to tell you. But, getting back to the forwards, as much as they are deep, and they are, at the very latest, by a month and a half left in the season by trade deadline, Jonathan Drouin will likely be traded.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Evgeny Dadonov will likely be traded.
I'd say definitely.
Sean Monahan might be traded. We're talking about 3 players whose contract is up at the end of the year, and we do know that Kent Hughes wants to shed salary on the salary cap. Now, there's a chance of Mike Hoffman as well, but Hoffman will have another year on his contract after this year, so maybe he'll get traded the year after that. They have 2 goalies who are not Carey Price for the most part. And if one of them suffers an injury, and we don't know how much of a workload Jake Allen can take either, their defense, like you said, will have at least 3 young guys on defense. And even as deep as the forward group is, the players that I talked to you about, Jonathan Drouin, Mike Hoffman, Evgeny Dadonov, Sean Monahan, they've all struggled with consistency in terms of point production over the past couple of years. And Brendan Gallagher had an atrocious season last year, and I know everyone is hoping that well-rested he will bounce back, but until he bounces back, we don't know if he will. So even the strength of their team, which is the depth at forward, is fragile.
Yeah, there's lots of question marks around. And what you were just saying goes back to why I'm thinking Suzuki's the captain, because Suzuki's going into the first season of an 8-year contract. He's going to be here for a long time. He's going to be around. He's the guy who's going to comings and goings and whatever. He's going to be the stabilizing force in the locker room, the guy who's going to be here. He's going to grow with the team. Team's going to grow around him. But you're right. I mean, Jonathan,
I wouldn't do it, by the way. I wouldn't do it. I would have Edmondson as a buffer for the next 2 years. His contract is up. And it's not to say that Suzuki can't be a good captain, because I believe he'll end up being a very good captain for what it's worth. But I would have had Edmondson for the next 2 years. You make Suzuki settle in for 2 more years, get a little bit older, more experienced. 2 years into the big contract that he has. And then once Edmondson is gone, then you can make it Suzuki. I've said that. That's been my opinion for the last year and a half. But I do believe they'll name Nick Suzuki captain. I wouldn't. Edmondson is a Stanley Cup champion. He's a presence. He's a veteran. I don't think he's got a lot of pressure on him to perform. And he seems to be the guy who rallies the troops and is the guy who keeps everyone together more so than everyone else. And that's why I do that.
But I think they want stability in the captaincy moving forward, which Suzuki provides. And Edmondson, Gallagher, all these guys are going to be around Suzuki, right? And the fact that he's so well respected in the room, I don't think it's going to be a case of Joel Edmondson being upset that Nick Suzuki was named captain instead of him. Again, Kent Hughes is honest and speaks with Edmondson, explains to all the leadership, we're naming Nick Suzuki captain. Here's the reasons why. He's the cornerstone of our franchise moving forward. He's going to be the face of the franchise moving forward. But we need you guys to really support him and really help him back him up in the room, talk to him on the road, give him advice, say what you would do in this situation. I think all those things are going to happen. And the second part of the quote Nick gave me when I asked about being captain, I'll read it to you now, and it's in the column that I wrote. He said, it would be a lot of work ahead for me, but I think I'm in a good position for that. And I have great leadership around me of older guys and guys that have helped me along. So if that were to happen, it would be pretty cool. Again, the respect that he has in the room, I think Brendan Gallagher would, these guys, it goes back to what I was saying before about why I thought Gallagher would have been a better captain than Weber. Weber would still be in the room. Weber would still be a huge leader in the room. But Gallagher would handle all the parts of being a captain that Weber didn't want or didn't enjoy doing. Now, in the room, there's more than one leader in the room, right? But
you're right about that. And
you need that one guy though who is the captain, which they were lacking last year. That one guy who is the captain, who speaks up and has the final word. And that final word from a Nick Suzuki as captain would be after he spoke with Joel Edmondson and after whatever an issue might be in the locker room, whatever it is. You speak with Edmondson on the road, you have a coffee, you speak with Gallagher, you speak with the key leadership guys. What should I do? How would you handle this? And then at the end of the day, Suzuki has to make his decision, but he's a smart kid. He's a smart kid, and he seems to be a humble kid. And for me personally, it's been cool watching him since he first joined the Canadiens. I remember the first rookie camp interviewing him, and he was like a deer in the headlights. Like he was almost afraid to say something wrong or what he was going to do or how he was going to say. And then I think of the Nick Suzuki I interviewed on Monday in a Zoom conference. Calm, comfortable, confident, well-spoken, good answers. The answer the quote I just read you about the leadership, the quote I read you about it's surprising. He's not saying we're going to win the Stanley Cup. He just thinks, I think we're going to be better than a lot of people think we're going to be. So there's a lot of different ways you can be a leader. As I said, the more Suzuki matures on and off the ice, the more he reminds me of Saku Koivu, just as the type of player and the type of person and the type of leader that I think he can be for this team moving forward.
And the room is not only the locker room, it also includes the gym and matrixhomefitness.ca. Not only do you see their products in a bunch of gyms throughout the city, throughout the province, throughout the country, but you can also bring it home. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. Visit matrixhomefitness.ca. All right. Suzuki and Caufield were a tandem down the stretch last year when Marty St. Louis took over, a tandem that a lot of people appreciated. I know public opinion would love to see Juraj Slafkowski as the third member of that line. And it sounds like from the conversation you had with Nick Suzuki would like to see that as well.
He'd like to see it, but speaking like a captain and a leader, it's not guaranteed. It's not written in stone. The way I phrased the question to him, I said, I spoke with Slafkowski the day before the draft. You were there, Tony. We were together when they brought out prospects in Old Montreal. And I asked Slavkovsky, I think I asked him a question. It was me. I said,
a certain sports radio station in the city was not there because they actually didn't know that it was going on. But, you and I were there.
I asked Slavkovsky, why should the Canadians draft you #1? And you were there, Tony. His response was because I'd be a good fit with Caufield and Suzuki, and we'd be able to score a lot of goals together. So when I spoke with Suzuki, I mentioned that. I mentioned that interview I had with him, and I mentioned that he wanted to play with you guys, and if he thought they would be a good fit. And he said they've been training together in Brossard. He said he's surprised how big this kid is. Like and we both had the same reaction, Tony, when we saw him. I'm 6'3" and about 225 pounds. This kid's bigger than me, and he's 18.
I weigh more than you. I weigh more than you. I weigh more than you, Stu.
So I have the quote here.
You probably got 4 inches on me, but I got 50 pounds on you, Stu.
He said about Slavkovsky, he said he's a great guy. He's a lot of fun to be around. On the ice, he's a lot bigger than I imagined. I think he's doing the right things. He's working really hard, so he's going to come into camp pretty ready, and we'll see how that shapes up for the Lions. And then he mentioned to me also, we all have to play well for Marty St. Louis to put us on the same line. I mean, you and I, there's no guarantee at this point right now. This is me speaking, not Nick. There's no guarantee right now that Slavkovsky going to make the team. I think he will. I think he's going to start the season in the NHL.
I think he will. I think he will too.
Yeah, I think he's going to play at least 9 games, and then they'll decide if they send him down or not. But I'd be shocked if he's not in the starting lineup, and I'd be shocked if the first preseason game he's not on the line with Suzuki and Caufield, because I think that's one of the reasons they drafted him. I think if that's your #1 line, that can be your #1 line for the next 6-7 years. 3 guys who were all first-round draft picks, different styles of player, the big, powerful winger, the little guy who can shoot the puck like nobody, and the smart playmaking two-way defensive center. That could be a top line in the NHL moving forward if all these 3 guys progress the way the Canadians hope they can. So it's again, Nick answered that question like he handled it really well. He answered it well. He said, yeah, he'd be a good fit, but nothing's proven yet. Like, we all have to play well. We all have to prove that they belong to be together. Slavkovsky has to prove he's ready to be in the NHL. Suzuki and Caufield already proved this is the chemistry they have together. But I'm sure that Nick is like thinking in the back of his mind, man, it would be nice if we can get this big kid playing on top of it. And he's a monster, this kid. He's so big.
I think he'll be on the big team and start with the big team because he's big enough, because he's strong enough, because they're most likely not going to make the playoffs anyway. So you don't have to have a very veteran group. You can live with young players' mistakes. And I go back to the Canadians and the video coverage of the draft when Kent Hughes picks up the phone and calls Kirby Doc and tells him that he's been working on a trade for 48 hours and says, I don't know if you just saw, but we drafted somebody who was like bigger than you type of thing. So that leads me to believe, and all those reasons why. Look, I don't know if he's going to start the season on the big line, but I will tell you this, by the end of the season, I think he'll end the season on the big line. So that's my take. Great article. It got you out of vacation. And I would imagine with the weather in Montreal the past couple of days, you've been enjoying your pool?
I have. I got a couple of rounds of golf in and a little swim in the pool after golf. So it's been a fantastic vacation, but relaxed, ready to go. Looking forward to this Canadian season. As I said, they're not going to be a very good team. They're going to be near the bottom of the standings, but I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. They were fun to watch last season after Marty St. Louis took over, and I think they're going to be even more fun to watch this season. So, and I think the one thing from last season, my main takeaway at the end of the year, Tony, this is a team that finished last in the NHL and got a standing ovation when they left the ice at the Bell Center for their final game. That shows you that fans in this city are willing to have a rebuild. They're willing. They just want to see a plan.
As long as they're entertained, Stu.
As long as they're entertained. You spend a lot of money. People spend a lot of money to go to the Bell Center to watch a game, and it's entertainment. At the end of the day, sports is entertainment. You want to be entertained, and they haven't been entertaining for a long time.
Stu, if you miss the playoffs, who cares where you finish? It's actually better to finish near the bottom or at the bottom so you get as great a draft pick as possible. I know a lot of people don't agree with me on that topic, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm telling you you're wrong.
And I don't agree with tanking, Tony. Players
no, but if organically the team is weak, they're not going to
be a young team that's going to lose a lot of games because they're a young team without great goaltending. But they're going to compete. They're going to compete like they did last season. We saw it with Marty St. Louis took over. They competed every night. When they were down 4-1, they still fought and they came back. So they're going to compete. There's some talent there. They're going to score some goals. There's a lot of young guys. It'll be interesting to watch Jordan Harris develop. It's going to be if Caden Gooley makes the team. They have so many young guys coming up. Cole Caufield, what can he do with a full season with Marty St. Louis as his coach? What can Nick Suzuki do? There's so many storylines going into the season that are going to be fun to watch. It's a young, rebuilding team that has a plan in place, has smart people running the team now, has a coach that the players love, and will skate through a wall for them. And it's going to be a fun season. See, they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose a lot of 5-3, 6-4 type games. But people who are going to go to the Bell Center, they're going to see goals. They're going to see if Cole Caufield scores 3 goals and the Habs lose 6-4, I think people who went to the Bell Center are going to go home and say, that was a fun night.
I agree with you. And once again, and Andy, I got 50 pounds on you, Stu, so you can never say that you weigh. Well, I'm a bigger guy than you in terms of weight. All right. Thanks for doing this, man. All the best to you.
Okay, Tony. Enjoy whatever's left. Enjoy Spain and whatever's left of the summer before we get going full gear.
I will. Thank you so much. And once again, you can follow us on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. Sick Marinaro, pretty sick man, live from Spain. I should be back next week in Montreal. Until then, a couple of more podcasts from Spain for you. Right here, the podcast that never sleeps. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature, and La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.